Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I'm sure you've heard these words before. Somebody says, it's just your imagination. Yeah, it's just your imagination. Okay, so why is that such a bad thing? It's not. We're going to talk about the power of your imagination and how you can change your life, overcome obstacles, and chart a new course for your future using hypnosis. Lots to talk about today. I've learned so much in the times we've gotten together with him. He's the owner of Unconscious Edge Hypnosis, and he's back with us. Dennis Marciniak is on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Steve. Happy to be here.
So, and having done hypnotherapy before, I get the whole imagination thing, that what we're doing essentially is putting a suggestion in to change a situation. And these are layman's terms, verbalizing it. But if you're going to put a suggestion in to change your situation, it should be a positive one. And where's that coming from? Ultimately, it would be your imagination. And your imagination could be your reality. Those are my terms explaining it. Now let's go to the professional.
Well, anything that you can conceive of, you can work toward, and you can go ahead and create. I mean, the Wright brothers somehow had a vision of flying, and through a lot of trial and error and failures, and eventually there was success, and they would be completely amazed at where the invention of the airplane has gone from its early inception. So, in terms of our own mind, if we can't see ourselves doing something, often it just becomes a limitation. It becomes a restriction. Children tend to model their parents or older people or athletes or actors or singers. You'll see a little girl with a hairbrush, that she puts to her mouth as if it's a microphone, and it's kind of like she's using her imagination, but she's modeling and she's envisioning, and unless somebody comes along and tells her, you can't do that, or you'll never be able to do that, and all of a sudden she takes on that limitation. Well, maybe she can do that if she's allowed to imagine, see herself going towards that particular activity or that particular expertise. So.
Oh, and that's one of the most beautiful things about children is their imagination, and how there are no boundaries, and they can do anything they want just by using their imagination, and that curiosity that kids have. I feel as adults, we should try and harness that and ride that as long as we can, because it's a beautiful thing just to be curious about things, learn new things. When it comes to the power of our imagination and making changes through hypnosis, can you give us an example? Let's say somebody has a challenge, they have hypnosis. We're talking about putting a positive change in there from your imagination. Maybe roll a situation hypothetically.
Well, not too long ago, I had a client that could not go to the dentist. Every time she opened up her mouth, and the dentist had to put his hands in her mouth to work on a tooth, she would gag. She would gag so much so that she couldn't sit in the chair. For the dentist, he suggested she go and see a hypnotherapist because he thought that would be of some use to her. So, in a hypnosis session, again, hypnosis is just a relaxed state where your guard is down, your shield, so to speak, is down, and you're more apt to receive positive suggestions. And so in that state, I had her visualize that she was in the dentist chair, and that she should make believe that she didn't have this gagging thing. Just somehow see herself having gotten beyond the whole process of her fear and her muscles contracting and her throat muscles contracting and her gagging and so forth. Just make believe that you don't have that issue, and picture, visualize, imagine that you see yourself in that chair feeling really, really comfortable, allowing you're able to breathe normally without any restriction, and then kind of backtrack from that. You see yourself in the chair, you see yourself having the dentist being able to complete successfully the process, and then kind of go backwards, start to, as if you're walking backwards, see yourself, having gone from your car to entering the dentist's office to getting in the chair, but we're doing it in reverse now. You're going backwards. Now you're walking backwards out of the dentist and back into your car. And just that process of being able to see the successful completion, it interjects a positive image in place of that neural network that was already projecting, even before she got out of her car, that she's anticipating gagging, she's anticipating, having a failed experience. So it's a really simple thing, but and she reported to me, because we did it like an hour before her appointment, just to make it immediate. And she reported to me that, she was laughing, that it was so simple and that the procedure went so easily. And again, you're just interrupting an old neural network that somehow you accumulated, and using that imagination, that sense of visualization, picturing, making believe. I've heard some different kinds of career coaches and so forth, and I'm not even sure who said it first, but I think some people attribute it to Carl Jung. But basically, fake it until you make it. Kind of a process, you're feeling a little bit of fear, you're feeling a little lack of confidence. Well, just fake it, just fake it that you're confident, fake it that you're competent, fake it that you're successful, and you break through again what limitations that you're picturing, and you're picturing something new. You're visualizing, you're imagining that you're a successful person, and there's a lot of success to that approach.
It's almost as if you're manifesting. I'm a big believer, a student, we're still a work in progress, of manifesting, but it almost sounds that way, where you're visualizing it. And many believe that if you visualize it and truly believe it, you're going to get those things you're going to attract those things that you feel you deserve, whether it's a car, whether it's, a house, whatever it might be. On a smaller scale, it almost sounds like this is what it is. You need to, and it's also like fake it till you make it. I've often heard too, and I've done this, dress the part. You're walking into a meeting, look like or even a job interview, look like you have that job already. It's just it's a mindset. And this is the way hypnotherapy works, where you're just, I'm careful when I say this, rewiring the brain. We're physically not, and we're not, brainwashing somebody. We're just suggesting, or allowing them to suggest with your help, what they want, albeit maybe being able to go to the dentist and not, your gag reflex kicking in, right? Do you ever identify, or how often, if so, why somebody was limited? Does that ever present, like in her case, was it maybe she choked on a lollipop when she was a kid, or whatever it might be? Does that ever get revealed?
It does. It does, and it can be very helpful to know that. But but it isn't necessarily something you have to, isolate.
And I get that. We don't need to know, but I'm just curious if it comes up. Some of us wonder, like, why did I have that? Why was I always afraid of getting on a plane? Why do I have a gag reflex like that at the dentist?
Well, the interesting part in answer to your question is, there are a lot of people that they remember an incident that could have caused the fear or anxiety in relationship to whatever, in this case, a dentist. But sometimes they assume that they understand what that did to them. And yet sometimes if you just have people stop and just, okay, take a deep breath, not have the first thing that comes to your mind be what you express as your understanding, and just kind of sit with it. And all of a sudden it's like they from their unconscious, they come up with a certain other little aspect to it that makes them understand it a little bit better too. So that's kind of fascinating, that sometimes the conscious mind is so quick to want to be in control and want to know everything and be the smarty pants, and yet somehow take a deep breath, kind of let the message come from a deeper place in you, and you get a little bit more insight sometimes.
So hypnotherapy, game changer for me. I did have, and it wasn't for this, but it kind of ties into going to the dentist. Always had a fear of blood tests. Like I don't know what it was. I put them off. I don't know if I ever shared this. I changed the date, and knowing how this all works and the rewiring of the mind. This is this year. I changed my mindset, and I looked at it as I am doing something for myself. I'm going to get some information that's for me, health-wise. Could be good, maybe not so much. We'll work on that if not. As I started just changing the way I look at things, it's almost, I guess, along the same way as, fake it till you make it. I have no fear. It's gone. It was just a process. The next blood test I would go, I start a conversation with the phlebotomist, take my mind off of it, and then and on and on. Now, poke me, I don't care. Like, it's almost to the point where I giggle, like I laugh, like, that's funny. And then I'm curious, will I feel anything? How long will it last? It'll be 23 seconds, I'll be done, and that's it. And I basically what you're saying, learning this process, I figured it out that it doesn't bother me. Very impactful,
to change that mentality from, and maybe victimhood is too strong a word in this case, but to change that mentality from, I'm receiving something that I'm, not so anxious to receive, to that place of curiosity, kind of put a positive spin on it, and all of a sudden, going back to the child example, children are curious and they're not afraid of making mistakes. Sometimes they don't fully understand what the consequences of their mistakes might be, but there's a certain element that's very positive and very constructive in, not being afraid to make a mistake, pick yourself up and move along. And as an adult, somehow there's a little, you don't want to appear to be foolish. You don't want to look bad. So there's a tendency to, I'm not going to try something new because I'm going to look foolish, or I'm going to, it's going to take me a while to master that particular skill. And that's very restrictive. If we can just get, again, back to a place, and it starts with self-talk. It might be, even though I'm a little nervous about this, or even though I'm, not feeling very adequate in attempting this new skill or this new activity, I'm going to go for it. I'm just going to give it my all, and whatever happens, happens. It's like a much more free experience that way.
What you said, though, initially here in terms of it being um, victim mentality. I believe you're right in the blood test situation with me, and I'm sure with others. I didn't think of it that way until you just said it. And then I'm visualizing me sitting there with the band on, and now they're going to draw blood, thinking back to, why do I have to be here? Why do I have to do this? Why another blood test? They messed the last one up. That was actually one reason why. They forgot to do something. Got to be here again. Like, I get up and make an appointment. I had a fast. Why me? Why me, man? I think you're right. Like, and getting out of that. And I didn't even realize it until you said it. This is why you're great at what you do. That changing it to, like you said, receiving something, receiving some information, receiving, and it's a good thing, and many times, just, tweak a little something here with your labs, and then you're all good. And getting out of that, what if it comes back really bad? That whole mentality. But it's the rewiring of the mind. But guess what? I had to go through hypnotherapy to figure that out. Just to open your mind up. When it comes to the power of imagination, any suggestions that you could give us to make that even work, make that stick even better?
Well, I was just thinking before we started the show there. The school that I went to, the founder of the school used this process that he called the mental bank, and it's really kind of dovetails into the whole idea of making commitments or setting goals, and then in setting goals, you break it down into the steps that it takes to accomplish that goal, and what he had proffered was that because our unconscious mind, we're so programmed towards money anyway, from day one, getting your allowance as a kid and whatever. So what he did was he said, set a goal, look at the steps that it would take to achieve that goal, and then ascribe a monetary value that you would give yourself, in a sense, in your own mental bank, so to speak, wow, for accomplishing that little step. And then before you go to sleep at night, basically do your tally. I did so many different, if you're in sales, for example, I did 2 hours of cold calling, or I did, 2 hours of whatever, and you do the steps, and then you're communicating with your unconscious by number one, even writing down. It makes it that much more powerful in terms of communication with your subconscious. So, I know going through different businesses and corporations that I was involved with earlier in my life. Often we'd have to set yearly goals, and we'd have, certain targets, monthly targets, and, quarterly, and, semi-annually, and so forth. And so, maybe it has a purpose, but even then it was something you just did because your manager was requiring you to do. And to take it seriously, again, it's that sense of having a vision. It's that sense of using your imagination to set that vision, but then to look at the little steps that lead up to being successful in that. The funny thing, though, even having said this now, just even hearing myself explain it, the biggest part to me has become that sense of seeing where I want to go, and getting past any sense of restriction about it. Because if I see where I want to go, then all of a sudden, and I'm really, like you said, emotional. I'm emotionally invested in that. It becomes more powerful, and then I can see more clearly also the steps, and some ways having the vision puts it in motion, and you're already taking steps without you even realizing it. I'm moved. I mean, it feels really nice to say I'm moved about something in my life. It could be a passion for your children or grandchildren, or it could be a passion for particular activity or some, saving the world from whatever. I'm not trying to be flip, but it's nice to be moved, and there's emotion behind that. There's power behind that, and often, again, that can get generated from just having a sense of a vision coming from imagination, basically.
Well, you feel like you're moving in a positive direction, and I love what you just said. Fixing a value on something, things that you do, the steps that you're taking toward a goal. Because many of us just look like, day's over. I'm going to be honest, this is me yesterday. I have things I want to achieve outside of the normal things that I do. And I look back and I got to go to bed. I'm working on this. I'm trying to get this done. How far did I come with this? I've had a software issue, a little bit of a setback instead of moving forward. But if you put a value on that, all right, so maybe software didn't work initially. I'll figure it out. No worries whatsoever. Been there, done that a million times. But I spent an hour troubleshooting that. Wasn't for naught, because I know eventually I'm moving in the right direction. You know what? I'm gonna pay myself, $100 an hour. And then start tallying that up, because we think of many things monetarily, that now there's a value on it. Well, I put $100 worth of effort into that. Now, I worked on that too. Let's make 45 minutes, prorate that or whatever. It's an interesting way to look at it, in terms of positivity.
Yeah. And subconsciously you're acknowledging the efforts that you've made, and I guess you could say you're patting yourself on the back, but that's a good thing. That's
absolutely.
Yeah.
But you know what? We don't do that. We beat ourselves up, and we look and say, I didn't really get that much done today. Sheesh. And now it goes, the pendulum swings the other way toward negativity, and you really can't quantify sometimes what you've done, because it just gets lost in the sauce. I spent an hour here, I'm doing this there, back to that job, doing this over here. When you put a fixed value on it, now you have something a little more tangible, even though it's made up. At least you have something to go by. It's just a different way of looking at it, and I never thought of that way. Yeah, whatever works for you. Certainly, I can say firsthand, hypnotherapy definitely works in so many different ways. How does somebody start the process with you? The beautiful thing is it can be done virtually, anywhere. I've never done hypnotherapy in person with anybody ever in my life. Yeah. It's just great. How do we find you, Dennis?
My website is unconsciousedge.com, and my phone number is there. My email address is there. Usually I start with an exploratory phone call that doesn't cost anything. Sure. Gives me an opportunity to get a sense as to what that individual wants to work on, and then we go from there. Set an appointment. I do these days more and more just Zoom sessions, but I do have an office, and I do see people in person also. So
sure. Love everything today. You're always fantastic. Today, pay yourself $100, Dennis. You deserve it. Like so much more clarity and just ways to navigate this. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being here today. We'll catch up soon. Okay.
Okay. Fantastic. Thanks.
We'll be right back.
Okay.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind, like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind, like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama, like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.